Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when a really powerful idea, a whole new way of looking at the world, leaves its home and goes global? What gets changed along the way? What gets lost? Well, today we're jumping into a fascinating argument from way back in 1992 that honestly feels like it could have been written yesterday.
And this right here, this is the big question we're going to explore. We're not just talking about language, we're talking about power, about context, and the sort of hidden traps that can come with what seems like a great thing, sharing knowledge. We're going to unpack all of this through the story of one academic field and one very sharp critic. All right, so to really get this, we need to set the scene. Let's rewind the clock to the academic world of the 1980s and early 90s. There's this new intellectual movement that is just taking off. This new field was called cultural studies, and it was absolutely electric. Seriously, it was the cool new kid on the block. It gave people all these new ways to analyze everything from movies to politics. It wasn't just stuck in one department either. It cut right across the humanities and social sciences, and scholars all over the world were really eager to start using its methods. I mean, what's not to love about that, right? The source material we're looking at says it came in at the right moment. It handed people a brand new language to talk about power and culture. So on the surface, this looked like a totally positive thing, a kind of intellectual gift to the world. But, and this is a big but, not everyone saw it that way. And this is where our story takes a really interesting turn. Because from outside those big Western academic centers, a critical voice started speaking up, basically telling everyone to pump the brakes. That voice belonged to a scholar named Kuan-Hsing Chen, and he was about to sound a major alarm. Wow. I mean, with an opening line like that, Chen is making it clear there's a huge problem. He's talking about Eurocentric and Anglocentric studies, which is just a way of saying ideas that are completely centered on European and English-speaking perspectives. He wasn't just making a suggestion here, he was announcing his departure. He was arguing that as this Western idea was spreading, it was actually causing some serious, unintended damage. So Chen's critique really focused on three big dangers. First, something he called depoliticization. The theories were just becoming these sterile academic exercises, totally, quote, cut off from contemporary social movements. Think of it like a theory about protest that gets debated in a classroom forever, but it never actually helps the activists out on the street. Second, expansionist colonization. Whoa, this is when Western ideas are just stamped on top of other cultures, completely ignoring what's actually happening locally. It's kind of like trying to use a map of New York City to find your way around Tokyo. The map might be great, but it's for the wrong place entirely. And third, he warned about a new kind of left cultural imperialism, where even progressive ideas from the West could, ironically, become just another form of dominance, the one and only right way to think about justice. So you have to ask, why was Chen the one to see this so clearly? Well, his whole perspective came from this really personal and pretty difficult position, a feeling of being caught between two completely different worlds. See, Chen was one of the first scholars to be trained in this Anglo-American cultural studies and then go back home. He described his original goal as a, quote, quite naive political intent to change the world. But when he got back to Taiwan, he found that the theories he had learned just didn't quite fit the local reality, and this threw him into a profound crisis. And this right here illustrates his dilemma perfectly. When he was in the West, he was a minority voice, someone from the margins of academia. But back home in Taiwan, his fancy Western education gave him a privileged position. He was, as he put it, both inside and outside, in an in-betweenness where problems begin. And it was from this unique spot that he could see what everyone else was missing. So this is the absolute core of it all. Chen wasn't saying these Western ideas were useless, not at all. He knew you needed theories about capitalism to fight giant multinational corporations. The real question, the tough one he was wrestling with, was this. How do you use those powerful tools without it becoming a kind of self-colonization, where you start to see your own culture only through a foreign lens? But here's the thing about Chen. He didn't just point out the problem and walk away. Nope. He proposed a solution, a really sophisticated strategy for how people all around the world could use global ideas in a much more thoughtful, ethical, and, frankly, effective way. He called his strategy New Internationalist Localism. I know, it sounds like a mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually super elegant. It's not about choosing between being local or global. It's about grounding yourself firmly in local problems while at the same time building alliances with other groups around the world who are facing similar fights. It's a way to be connected without being dominated.
So, this whole strategy is built on 4 key ideas. First, start local. Every analysis has to be grounded in your specific immediate reality, not some abstract theory from halfway across the planet. Second, ally globally. Don't just look up to the big centers of power. Instead, build connections with other marginalized groups who actually get your struggle. Third, target the power block. You have to recognize that the real problem is often this team-up he calls the power block. Think of it as the alliance between a country's own ruling class and the giant international corporations they partner with. And finally, and this one is so important, resist purity. Chen says there's no such thing as a pure local culture. It's always a mix. It's always changing and interacting with the world.
This quote just nails it. He uses the word dialectic, which I know sounds super academic, right? But all it really means is you take two things that seem like opposites, in this case localism and internationalism, and you bring them together to create something new and stronger. For Chen, the future wasn't about choosing one or the other. It was about mastering the tension between them to create a better way to fight for change. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, this is a really fascinating academic debate from over 30 years ago. So what? Well, the truth is, Chen's warning and his strategy are probably more important today than they were when he first wrote them down. Just think about it for a second. Chen wrote that big forces like capital, patriarchy, and racism have no nationality. In our world of global finance and social media, that is more true than it has ever been. Ideas, political frameworks, even activist movements, they can spread across the entire globe in seconds. And with that incredible speed comes an even greater risk of that expansionist colonization he warned about, where one dominant way of thinking can just steamroll all the local contexts. So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for us? Chen's work is really a powerful call to action. It's asking us not to just passively accept ideas no matter where they come from. It's telling us to be critical, to be creative users of ideas, to adapt the tools to fit our own problems, and to connect with other people who are doing the exact same thing. And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. In a world that is getting more and more interconnected every single day, this is the challenge that we all face, really. How do we learn from each other? How do we borrow the best ideas from all over the planet, while making sure that we don't accidentally silence or erase our own unique stories and contexts in the process? It's pretty much the central question of our time, and Chen gave us a brilliant map to start navigating it.